The final judgment, Captain Marcus Vale stood in the center of the massive Galactic Council chamber, his uniform crisp, despite the weight of impending doom pressing down on his shoulders. Around him, representatives from 73 different species sat in towering seats that formed a perfect circle, their alien faces displaying everything from disgust to pity as they stared down at the lone human figure. The chamber itself was a marvel of galactic engineering, with walls that seemed to stretch endlessly upward and floors made of crystalline material that reflected the soft blue light emanating from floating orbs above. But Marcus felt none of the wonder he had experienced during his first visit here 20 years ago. Today, this place felt like a courtroom where humanity was about to receive its death sentence. The unchangeable demand. High Chancellor Zorvac of the Krelian Dominion rose from his central throne, his forearms spreading wide as his metallic voice echoed through the vast space. The translator implant in Marcus's ear converted the alien's words into perfect English, though the cold tone needed no translation. For the final time, Captain Vale, will humanity accept the genetic modifications required for galactic citizenship? Will your species abandon its primitive, violent tendencies and embrace the peaceful evolution that all civilized races have undergone? Marcus had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times during the long journey to Nexus Prime. He had practiced different words, different approaches, anything that might change the outcome. But as he looked up at the 73 species that had already transformed themselves into docile, conflict-free versions of their former selves, he knew there was only one answer he could give. Humanity respectfully declines, Marcus said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced acoustics. We believe that our natural emotions, including our capacity for both love and anger, our ability to feel passion and fight for what we believe in, are not flaws to be corrected. They are the source of our strength. A ripple of what could only be described as horror passed through the assembled aliens. The Vaxorian delegate, whose species had removed all aggressive instincts 3 centuries ago, actually recoiled in his seat. The crystalline Zelthari representative's body flickered with shocked red light. The inevitable vote chancellor, Zorvac's expression hardened, though his species had supposedly eliminated all negative emotions generations ago. Perhaps some instincts were harder to remove than others. Then you force us to take action to protect galactic peace, Zorvac announced. All those in favor of Resolution 847 Alpha, the complete expulsion of humanity from galactic civilization, please indicate your vote. Marcus watched in fascination and growing dread as every single representative activated their voting crystals. Blue lights appeared above each delegation section, 73 identical beacons of rejection floating in the chamber's artificial atmosphere. Not one abstention, not one voice of support. Every species that humanity had traded with, fought alongside, and tried to befriend, had just voted to cast them into the darkness of space. The vote is unanimous, Zorvac declared with what Marcus swore was satisfaction. Despite the Krelians' supposed emotional modifications, humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Union. All trade agreements are terminated immediately. All human colonies within galactic space must be evacuated within 1 standard year. Any species found providing assistance to humanity will face similar sanctions. The point of no return. Marcus felt something fundamental shift inside his chest. Not heartbreak, though that was certainly there. Not anger, though fury burned in his veins like molten metal. What he felt was a cold, calculating realization that humanity had just been given the greatest gift possible, though none of these aliens would understand it. They had been set free. Chancellor Zorvac, Marcus said, his voice carrying a new edge that made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. I want to make sure I understand correctly. Humanity is being exiled because we refuse to remove our capacity for violence, our willingness to fight for what we believe in. That is correct, Zorvac replied. Your species' barbaric nature makes you incompatible with civilized society. Marcus nodded slowly, then did something that sent shockwaves through the assembled aliens. He smiled. Not a diplomatic smile or a nervous expression, but a predator's grin that showed teeth and promised consequences. Then you've made a terrible mistake, Marcus said quietly. You've just told the most dangerous species in the galaxy that we're now free to act without any regard for galactic law or civilized expectations. You've released us from every treaty, every restriction, every diplomatic nicety that held us back." The chamber fell into absolute silence. Even the floating light orb seemed to dim as the implications of Marcus's words settled over the assembled representatives like a shroud. "We tried so hard to be like you," Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "We modified our behavior, suppressed our instincts, played by your rules. But you've just told us that our true nature is incompatible with your civilization." He turned slowly, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. "Thank you for freeing us to be exactly what we are." The long journey home. As Marcus walked toward the chamber's exit, his footsteps echoing in the unnatural quiet, he activated his communication device. The message he sent was brief, consisting of only 2 words, but it would change the course of galactic history. Plan Omega. Across the galaxy, in hidden bases and secret facilities that the galactic community had never suspected existed, humanity received the message and began to act. The exile had begun, but it would not end the way the Galactic Council expected. Behind him, Marcus could hear the first stirrings of nervous conversation among the delegates. Some were already beginning to wonder if they had made the right choice. By the time they realized their mistake, it would be far too late to change course. Humanity had been cast out of paradise, but they were about to show the galaxy that sometimes the serpent in the garden is exactly what the world needs. The hidden refuge Dr. Rebecca Storm floated through the cramped corridors of Sanctuary Station, checking her tablet as she moved between the makeshift laboratories carved into the heart of a massive asteroid. 5 years had passed since the Great Banishment, and what had started as a desperate refugee camp had transformed into something the galaxy had never seen before. Hidden deep in the Kepler belt, far beyond the reach of galactic sensors, humanity was rebuilding itself from scratch. The station buzzed with constant activity. Engineers worked around the clock expanding the living spaces, while scientists pushed the boundaries of human knowledge in ways that would have been impossible under galactic oversight. Without the restrictive treaties and ethical guidelines imposed by the Galactic Union, human innovation had exploded in directions that surprised even Rebecca herself. "Dr. Storm, you need to see this," called out Dr. Marcus Webb from the quantum physics lab. His excitement was barely contained as he gestured toward a device that hummed with barely visible energy. "We've finally cracked it. Faster than light. Communication without using the galactic relay network." Rebecca moved closer to examine the sleek device, no larger than her fist but radiating power that made her skin tingle. For decades, humanity had relied on the alien-controlled communication network that connected all civilized worlds. Being cut off from that system had seemed like a death sentence for any hope of maintaining contact between scattered human colonies. "The underground network. How many colonies can we reach?" Rebecca asked, running her fingers along the device's smooth surface. The implications were staggering. If they could communicate freely without alien oversight, they could coordinate in ways their enemies never expected. "All of them," Webb replied, with a grin that reminded Rebecca why she had fallen in love with human ingenuity. "Every hidden settlement, every refugee ship, every survivor who managed to escape the purges. We've been testing it for weeks, and the range is unlimited. The aliens taught us about quantum entanglement, but they never imagined we would find a way to weaponize the concept." Rebecca nodded, already planning the next phase of their operation. During the 5 years of exile, they had discovered that their banishment had been more than just diplomatic rejection. Alien task forces had been systematically hunting down isolated human settlements, claiming they were enforcing quarantine protocols while actually conducting what could only be described as genocide. The official galactic records listed these operations as cleanup missions designed to prevent the spread of human aggression. But the survivors who had managed to escape told a different story. Entire colonies had been wiped out, their populations either killed or captured for experimentation. The galaxy wanted to understand what made humans so dangerous, and they were willing to dissect entire communities to find out. The hunter becomes the hunted colonel. James Ghost. Mitchell crouched in the maintenance shaft above the Vaxorian detention facility, his stealth suit rendering him completely invisible to both optical and thermal sensors. Through his helmet's display, he could see the facility's layout mapped in perfect detail, showing the locations of 47 human prisoners scheduled for scientific processing in just 6 hours. The aliens had made one fatal mistake. They assumed humans would never be able to find their secret research stations. The facility hung in the void between two dead planets, far from any inhabited system. To the Galactic Union, it was a classified research outpost studying human behavioral patterns. To Mitchell and his team, it was target number 1 in humanity's return to galactic awareness. After 7 years of exile, the time for hiding was over. Ghost Leader, this is Phantom 2, whispered Lieutenant Sarah Knox through the tactical network. I've got eyes on the control center. 4 Vaxorian technicians, all focused on their experiments. They have no idea we're here. Mitchell allowed himself a cold smile. The Vaxorians had been one of the first species to volunteer for human hunting duties, eager to prove their loyalty to the Galactic Union. Their enhanced empathy and peaceful modifications made them perfect for studying human aggression, or so they believed. They never considered that their empathetic nature might also make them vulnerable to psychological warfare. The invisible assault moving through the station's corridors like a shadow. Mitchell marveled at how completely the aliens had underestimated human adaptability. Every security system had been designed to detect known galactic technology, but humanity had spent their exile years developing equipment that operated on entirely different principles. Their stealth suits didn't just bend light, they created quantum distortions that made their wearers exist slightly outside normal spacetime. All teams report status, Mitchell commanded through his neural link. Phantom team in position at the prisoner blocks, came Knox's voice. Wraith team has secured the power core, reported Sergeant Chen Wei. Spectre team ready at the communication. Array, added Corporal Diana Ross. Mitchell reached the facility's central hub and paused to observe the alien scientists at work. Through the transparent aluminum barrier, he could see human prisoners strapped to examination tables, while Vaxorian researchers studied their brain patterns. The aliens were trying to understand the neurological basis of human violence, completely unaware that they were about to experience it firsthand. Execute Phase 1, Mitchell ordered. The facility's lights flickered once, then died. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in red light, but by then, it was too late. Mitchell's team moved through the darkened corridors like deadly phantoms, their enhanced vision turning the darkness into an advantage, rather than an obstacle. The awakening terror Dr. Kelvar, the facility's lead researcher, stared at his instrument, panels in confusion as every system began malfunctioning simultaneously. His species had eliminated fear responses 300 years ago, but something primitive and forgotten began stirring in his modified brain as shadows seemed to move independently in his peripheral vision. Security report, he called into his communicator, but received only static in response. That was when the first scream echoed through the facility's corridors, then another. The sounds were not human, but the terrified cries of Vaxorian guards, encountering something their peaceful minds were unprepared to process. Mitchell's team wasn't just rescuing prisoners, they were conducting a psychological experiment of their own. The humans had discovered something fascinating during their exile. The genetic modifications that made galactic species peaceful had also made them incredibly vulnerable to fear-based warfare. Remove their sense of security, introduce genuine threat, and their modified brains began experiencing emotions they had forgotten how to handle. Attention Vaxorian personnel. Mitchell's voice echoed through the facility's communication system, electronically modified to sound like something from their deepest nightmares. You have been hunting humans for sport. Now humans are hunting you. Dr. Kelver's hands shook as he tried to activate emergency protocols, but his modified nervous system couldn't cope with the adrenaline flooding his bloodstream. Around him, his fellow researchers cowered behind their equipment, their enhanced empathy making them acutely aware of the predatory intent, now stalking through their sanctuary. The perfect rescue. In the detention blocks, Mitchell found exactly what he had expected. Humans who had been captured during colony raids kept alive for experimentation. But these weren't broken victims. Despite months of captivity, their eyes still burned with the unmodified human capacity for rage and determination. "Colonel Mitchell, Terran Special Forces," he announced as his stealth suit's camouflage deactivated. "We're here to take you home." The prisoners' faces showed a mixture of relief and anticipation that would have terrified their captors. These humans had endured alien experimentation without breaking, and now they were being rescued by ghosts who moved through impossibly secure facilities, as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. "How many of you are there?" asked Dr. Lisa Park, a xenobiologist who had been captured during the Rigel Station raid 6 months earlier. "Enough," Mitchell replied as his team systematically freed the prisoners from their restraints. "And we're just getting started." As they moved toward the facility's hangar bay, Mitchell's tactical display showed the complete success of their operation. Every Vaxorian on the station was either unconscious, hiding in terror, or experiencing psychological breakdown as their modified minds struggled to process genuine fear for the first time in centuries. The message sent. The rescued humans were loaded onto stealth transports that appeared seemingly from nowhere, their quantum drives allowing them to simply vanish from normal space. But Mitchell wasn't finished with the facility. As his team prepared to withdraw, he activated a device that would change everything. Throughout the station, holographic projectors came online, displaying a message that would soon be transmitted across the galaxy. The image showed Mitchell's face, no longer hidden by stealth technology, speaking directly to the camera with calm, terrifying certainty. "This message is for the Galactic Union and all species participating in human extermination operations. You declared us a threat to galactic peace and tried to wipe us out while we were bound by your laws and treaties. Congratulations. You have succeeded in removing every restraint that once protected you from what we really are." Behind him, Vaxorian, researchers could be seen cowering in terror. Their advanced civilization reduced to primitive panic by the simple presence of unmodified humans. "We have been watching you. We know the location of every facility, every ship, every world involved in hunting our people. What happened here is not revenge. It is an announcement. Humanity has returned to galactic space, and we are no longer interested in playing by your rules." The transmission ended with coordinates and a timestamp, showing exactly when and where the impossible rescue had taken place. Within hours, the message would reach every corner of galactic civilization, carrying a simple truth that would reshape interstellar politics forever. The prey had become the predator, and the hunt was just beginning. The fleet reveals itself. Admiral Victoria Cross stood on the bridge of the TSS Retribution, watching as her fleet emerged from quantum stealth in perfect formation around the Zetherian homeworld. 150 ships materialized simultaneously in what had been empty space moments before, their sleek hulls gleaming with predatory menace under the system's twin suns. The impossible had just become reality. Humanity had built a fleet capable of challenging the entire galactic navy. "Admiral, we are receiving panicked transmissions from the surface," reported Commander Blake Torres, his voice carrying barely contained satisfaction. "They're demanding to know who we are and how we bypass their early warning systems." Victoria allowed herself a predator's smile as she studied the tactical display. The Zetherian defense fleet, once considered among the most advanced in the galaxy, hung motionless around their homeworld like insects frozen in amber. Their commanders were discovering that all their sophisticated sensors had been completely useless against human quantum stealth technology. "Open a channel to the Zetherian High Command," she ordered. "It's time they learned what happens when you hunt human children." The main screen flickered to life, showing the serpentine form of Admiral Vesic, the same Zetherian who had personally overseen the destruction of 3 human colonies in the past year. His scaled features, normally composed in the artificial calm of genetic modification, now showed the first cracks of something his species had forgotten how to experience: genuine fear. The reckoning begins. This is Admiral Victoria Cross of the Yao, Terran Imperial Navy. she announced, her voice carrying across space to every ship and planetary defense station in the system. You are guilty of genocide against human civilians, including the massacre of children on New Brisbane Colony. Your sentence is unconditional surrender. Admiral Vesick's forked tongue flicked nervously as he processed this impossible situation. The Zetherian Defense Fleet numbers over 300 vessels. You have brought less than 200 primitive human ships against the most advanced military force in this sector. Victoria's expression never changed as she gestured to her weapons officer. Commander Hayes, please demonstrate our primitive technology. The demonstration lasted exactly 17 seconds. The TSS Vengeance, one of humanity's newest destroyers, fired a single pulse from its primary weapon. The energy beam, invisible to most sensors, struck the Zetherian flagship's shields and simply ignored them. The massive alien battlecruiser didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to exist. Its matter converted to energy in a process that violated every known law of physics. That was a quantum disintegration beam, Victoria explained calmly, as the shocked silence stretched across the communication channels. Human scientists developed it by combining your quantum mechanics with our nuclear physics. Your shields are designed to deflect energy, not to prevent matter from being converted into its component particles. The psychology of defeat on the surface of Zetheran Prime, Chancellor Thaxor watched through his palace windows as human ships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars. His species had ruled this system for over 2,000 years, had been among the founding members of the Galactic Union, had helped write the very laws that expelled humanity from civilized space. Now, those same humans were landing troops in his capital city, and his most advanced military couldn't even scratch their hulls. "Sir, the Defense Council is requesting permission to negotiate," reported his aide. A young Zetherian whose modified genetics should have prevented the terror that was clearly overwhelming his nervous system. "Negotiate what?" Thaxor asked, his voice hollow with defeat. "They have demonstrated that our weapons cannot harm them, and their weapons can erase us from existence. What possible terms could we offer?" Through his communication system, Admiral Cross's voice reached every citizen of Zetheran Prime simultaneously. "People of Zetheron, your government participated in the systematic murder of human families. However, we are not here for revenge against your civilians. We are here to offer you a choice." The holographic image of Victoria Cross appeared in the throne room, and Thaxor found himself face to face with a human military leader, whose presence seemed to fill the space with predatory confidence. "Your genetic modifications have made you peaceful, but they have also made you vulnerable," she continued. "Other species are already abandoning the Galactic Union to avoid sharing your fate. You can surrender now and accept human protection, or you can continue to resist and face the consequences." The Cascade Effect. Across the galaxy, the impossible victory at Zetheron Prime sent shockwaves through every civilized world. Species that had enthusiastically supported human expulsion suddenly found themselves reconsidering their positions as reports flooded in from the battle zone. The Altarian Confederation, which had provided ships for colony raids, immediately recalled their fleet and sent diplomatic envoys toward human space. The Regellian Trade Alliance suspended all military operations and declared neutrality. Most shocking of all, the Kepler Union announced they were withdrawing from the Galactic Council entirely. On the bridge of the Retribution, Victoria watched as real-time intelligence reports showed the complete collapse of galactic unity. Species that had stood together against humanity for 7 years were now scrambling to distance themselves from the anti-human coalition. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from 14 different species," reported her intelligence officer. "The Centauri Republic is offering to provide information about galactic military installations in exchange for protection. The Vega Consortium wants to negotiate a trade agreement." Victoria nodded grimly. Fear was a powerful motivator, especially among species that had forgotten how to cope with it. But she wasn't interested in ruling through terror alone. Humanity had learned something during their exile that the galaxy was about to discover. True strength came not from eliminating conflict, but from channeling it constructively. The new reality, As Etherian ships began broadcasting surrender signals, Victoria activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her words would be recorded and transmitted across the galaxy, marking the moment when human exile ended and human empire began. All ships, this is Admiral Cross. Today we have proven that humanity cannot be eliminated by those who lack the courage to fight for what they believe in. But we are not conquerors. We are liberators. Every species that accepts human leadership will find themselves stronger, not weaker. Every world that joins our alliance will discover what they lost when they chose artificial peace over natural strength. She paused, looking out at the Zetherian homeworld below, where human transport ships were already beginning the process of establishing a new order. The galaxy tried to eliminate us because they feared our capacity for violence. They never understood that our violence was always in service of something greater, our capacity for protection, for justice, for building something better than what came before. The transmission ended, but its effects would ripple across space. For generations, humanity had returned to galactic civilization, not as the outcasts they had been made, but as the apex predators they had always been destined to become. The age of artificial peace was ending. The age of human empire was about to begin. The fallen Council President David Kane walked through the same corridors where Captain Marcus Vale had once stood as humanity's final diplomat. But now the roles were reversed. The Galactic Council, chamber on Nexus Prime, once the symbol of alien unity against human barbarism, had become the seat of the Terran Empire. The irony was not lost on him as he approached the central podium where Chancellor Zorvac had once pronounced humanity's exile. The chamber itself remained unchanged, its crystalline walls still reflecting the soft blue light of floating orbs. But the delegates seated in the towering chairs were no longer the confident representatives of 73 united species. Many seats stood empty, their former occupants having fled to distant systems or surrendered their governments to human administration. Those who remained did so as petitioners, not rulers. The final vote on Resolution 1247 Omega will now be called, President Kane announced, his voice carrying the same authority that Zorvac had once wielded. All species in favor of accepting the Terran Empire's terms for galactic reconstruction, please indicate your vote. Blue lights appeared above 47 delegation sections. Green lights indicating abstention flickered above 12 more. Only 3 red lights of opposition remained active, representing species still foolish enough to believe they could resist humanity's new order. The price of wisdom, former Chancellor Zorvac, his once proud serpentine form now bent with defeat, raised one of his forearms in a gesture of submission. The Krelian Dominion, which had led the campaign for human expulsion, was now completely dependent on human protection after their neighbors had begun eyeing their territory with newfound aggression. President Kane, Zorvac spoke, his metallic voice carrying none of its former authority. The Krelian Dominion formally accepts Terran governance and requests integration into the Imperial system. Kane nodded, making notes on his tablet as he processed the surrender. The Krelians had been among the last holdouts, but the reality of galactic politics had finally penetrated their genetically modified consciousness. Without human protection, the peaceful species were discovering that the galaxy was far more dangerous than their artificial harmony had led them to believe. Your request is approved, Chancellor, Kane replied. Terran administrators will arrive within the month to begin the integration process. Your people will find that human leadership offers something your genetic modifications never could: the strength to defend what you value. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched this exchange with expressions ranging from relief to resignation. They had learned, through bitter experience, that humanity's version of empire was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, the human difference. Unlike the Galactic Union, which had demanded conformity through genetic modification, the Terran Empire celebrated diversity while providing security. Species that joined the Empire were allowed to maintain their unique characteristics and cultures, but they gained access to human military protection and technological advancement that made them stronger than they had ever been alone. The Vaxorians, once eager hunters of human survivors, had become the Empire's most effective diplomatic corps. their enhanced empathy making them perfect ambassadors when backed by human military might. The Altarians used their natural trading abilities to manage imperial commerce, while the crystalline Zelthari had become master engineers working alongside human scientists. "We have received the final report from the Outer Rim territories," reported Admiral Cross, who now served as Kane's military advisor. "The last remnants of the anti-human resistance have either surrendered or fled beyond galactic borders. Imperial space now encompasses 87% of known civilized systems.